Last week I met with a client, and she's been a podcaster for 2 years. She's a new client, and she's really good at what she does. And she had a show that she loved, a message that really mattered. Listeners were generally being helped, and she told me she was a few weeks away from wanting to quit everything. Not because podcasting was hard for her, not because she'd run out of things to say. She was ready to quit because someone had convinced her she had to be everywhere. So she was recording episodes, writing blog posts, showing up on Instagram every single day, pinning things to Pinterest, putting things on TikTok, sending weekly emails, and was trying to figure out how she could also incorporate YouTube. All of it at the same time by herself. She's just one person. And her podcast, the thing that she was actually called to do, had started to feel like one item on an impossible to-do list. So that's what we're talking about today. The lie that you have to be everywhere in order to grow. Because you've heard somebody telling you that, I'm sure. And honestly, I want to give you the truth. Welcome to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm your host, Tammy Munson, and this show is where we talk about what's real and how to carry your message with clarity, purpose, and faith. Are you tired of the noise and ready for some truth? Then, my friend, you are in the right place. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Before we get into all the things, I want to say two things. First of all, this audio may sound a little different than normal. I had planned a completely different episode, but when this came up, I knew in my heart that I knew I needed to talk about this. So I am actually recording this outside while I am traveling. So I hope that you enjoy all the birds in the background. Before we really get into the thick of it here, I want to start with something that Jesus said. And this is from Luke chapter 16, verse 10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And I come back to this particular verse a lot when I'm thinking about strategy and talking to podcasters, because I think that we've misread what faithfulness actually requires from us. We think about it, faithfulness, that is, means we need to do more. We need to show up in more places, say yes to more things, working harder to prove we're serious about the calling. But that's not what Jesus said. He said, be trustworthy with what's right in front of you, the little thing, the thing that's already in your hands. For you, that's your podcast. It's not your Pinterest boards. It's not whatever platform somebody told you a couple months ago that you absolutely need to be on and you can't afford to ignore it. Your podcast, the message God gave you. Your listeners are already showing up to hear it. That's the little thing. And if you can't be faithful there, adding 6 more platforms that you have to manage and create things for isn't going to fix this. Now stay with me here. We've talked on this show before about strategy noise and how most podcasting advice was built for someone with a team and 10 hours a week. And how sometimes that advice lands very differently when you're doing it all by yourself. Maybe you're recording in your closet after your kids go to bed. And I'm totally here for all of that. If you haven't heard all of that on last week's episode, I want you to go and take a listen to that. The name of the show is What Actually Moves the Needle. But today I want to get specific about one particular piece of that noise. Because it's not just that there's too much advice. It's that one specific lie has gotten louder than the rest. And that is doing more damage than almost anything else that I see out there. And the lie is this: you have to be everywhere in order to grow your podcast. What makes it so sticky is that that's not completely false, but it is outdated. There was a window several years ago when being on multiple platforms actually made genuine sense. The research was organic, the algorithms were friendlier, And you could show up in 3 different places and actually find new listeners in all 3 places without burning yourself in doing it. But that window is now closed. And now every platform runs on a version of an algorithm that rewards depth and consistency over spreading yourself a little too thin. You don't get rewarded for just showing up. You get rewarded for showing up in a way that keeps people on that platform longer than anything else it does. And that is a completely different game. And playing it across 6 different platforms or however many that you're on simultaneously, that's not ambitious. That's exhausting. And here's what I want you to understand about fragmentation that kind of goes beyond the practical sense. Because when you're scattered across, let's say, 6 platforms, you're not just spreading your time thin, you're spreading your spirit thin. The message gets diluted, the voice gets tired, and the calling starts to feel like a ginormous content operation. God doesn't work through hollow. He works through surrendered. And you can't fully surrender what you've divided into 17 different pieces. Now, let me tell you about my client, Sarah. Sarah has been podcasting for about 2 years. Solid show, faithful listeners, real growth. Slow, but steady. Exactly what we want. And she came to me because she hit a wall. How stuck she felt and how she was convinced the problem was visibility. And she said, if I could just get on one more platform, find more people, show up in more places, I know the growth would come. So we had a strategy call. And I asked her a simple question. Where was all the places that she was currently showing up? And she listed 6. Yes, 6. On top of producing a weekly show, which can be very time-consuming by itself. And so then we started diving into which one was actually sending listeners to her show. And I asked her that, and she got very quiet and said she didn't know. So we took a look at the numbers, and one platform was responsible for almost 80% of her new listeners. Just one. All of the others combined were responsible for maybe 12 downloads over the last 90 days. The reason her episode quality had been slipping, the reason her prep was getting thinner, and the joy was getting quieter, it wasn't because she wasn't working hard enough. She was working herself half to death. The majority of her creative energy was going into things that were producing virtually nothing. She had believed the lie, and it was costing her the very thing she was trying to protect. It wasn't her fault. She just had bad information. Sound familiar? So here's what I like to teach clients instead of the be everywhere approach. And I want you to write this down. So pause the podcast, get out your pen and paper, open up your notes app, whatever you choose to do. I want you to write this down. It's 1 deep, 1 wide. 1 deep means your podcast. That's your home base. That's the thing you were called to build. Every episode is where your best thinking lives, your voice is most fully you, and where the relationships with your listeners actually form. Your podcast is the deep thing. It never gets sacrificed for anything else. Think about what Jesus modeled. He didn't try to reach everyone everywhere all at once. He went deep with 12 people, and he had conversations. He told stories. He showed up in the same places consistently enough that people knew where to find him. The reach came from depth, not the other way around. Now, 1 wide means 1 platform, 1 secondary platform that you use specifically to bring new people back to your podcast. Not to entertain them there, not to build a separate audience there, although that sometimes does happen. It's to introduce yourself there and then send them home to your show. Now, I know some of you may be saying, wait a minute, Tammy, doesn't that mean I'm leaving growth on the table by ignoring all these other platforms? No. It means you're finally going deep enough on one of them to actually get somewhere. Because shallow presence on 6 platforms really gets you nothing. But consistent, intentional presence on one will get you traction. And then you can implement others as you go along if you choose to. Now, this isn't just a theory that I have. I've watched this happen. every time somebody makes the switch and goes all in with one platform, and then they master it, and then they can take on others. Now, which platform? Well, that depends on you and your specific audience. And this is kind of where a lot of podcasters tend to get stuck because nobody told them that it's okay to choose. What they heard was you have to be everywhere. So choosing one almost feels like giving up. But it's not giving up. It's getting faithful with what you actually have the capacity for. So how do you figure out which one? Well, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. And don't worry, I'm going to put this all in the show notes for you. Where do your ideal listeners already spend their time? Not where you think they should be, but where are the people who need your specific message? Where do they actually hang out? Is it Instagram? Is it YouTube? Maybe it's a Facebook group. Maybe it is TikTok. Know your listener and go where she is. That's why it's so important to identify who your listener actually is. And secondly, which platform plays to your natural strengths? If you love writing, maybe it's the newsletter or Substack. If you're great on video, maybe it's YouTube or even TikTok. If you'd rather eat glass than be on camera, then don't choose YouTube. The platform you'll actually show up on consistently is the right one. And consistently only happens when it's not making you absolutely miserable. And third, which platform has already shown you any traction at all? We want to look at what the data is actually telling us, not what our feelings are telling us. And you probably already have a little bit of data that you can rely on. It's the one place that is doing something, even if it's a small something. So start there. Build on what's already working instead of abandoning that to start over somewhere new. Like I said, one deep, one wide. That's the whole framework. I know maybe it sounds a little simple, a little too simple, but it's not. And I want to say something here, and I really want you to hear what I'm saying. You have the permission to stop doing all the things on all the platforms. Delete the TikTok app if it's making you anxious. Take Pinterest off your list. Stop recycling your content into 17 different formats and just make really good episodes for your podcast. The people who need your message are not waiting for you on every platform. They're waiting for you to keep showing up on the one you're actually good at. They found you. They're listening. They want more of the thing that made them hit subscribe in the first place. More of your voice, more of your teaching, more of your actual show. And that is what grows a podcast, my friend. Not omnipresence, but faithfulness. And here's what I would bet that is true about you. You started your podcast because you had something important to say, a message to share, and you believe that it could help someone. That was God moving. That nudge that pulled toward the microphone. That was Him. And He didn't call you to be everywhere. He called you to be faithful with the message He gave you. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2 says it plainly. Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. Notice it didn't say impressive. It just said faithful. That message hasn't changed. The calling hasn't changed. The God who gave it to you hasn't changed. What needs to change is the lie that you have been believing about what He requires of you to fulfill it. Okay, so let's get practical, as always. Here is what I want you to do this week. And I'm keeping it as small as possible because small is what actually gets it done. Erin Port says, tiny tweaks. And her book is fabulous. By the way, I will drop the link. So what you're going to do is get a piece of paper, open up your notes app, wherever it is. Write down every place that you're currently creating content beyond your podcast, every platform, every email list, everything. Get it all in one place where you can see it. Now, for each one, I want you to answer this as honestly as you can. No ego here. Has this platform sent any real listeners to my show in the last 90 days? Now remember, we're basing this on data, not feelings. It's not impressions. It's not followers. Actual people who have found your podcast because of this. If you don't know what that number is, you probably have your answer right there. So cross off anything that you can't answer yes. You're not going to delete it forever. you're just going to cross it off for now. For 60 days, it's just 2 months. Then take the one thing that's doing something, even if it's a very small something, and you're going to go deeper there. Just there. Remember, 1 deep, 1 wide. 60 days. That's all I'm asking for. And so here's the spiritual version of that. Give God 60 days of your full, undivided, unfragmented best on your podcast that He has called you to do. See what He does with it. I think you'll be surprised. So we started off today talking about this. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Your podcast is the little thing, the faithful thing, the thing that's already in your hands. You don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be there. Consistently, fully, with everything you've got. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode today. Like I said, it wasn't the one that I planned, and there's lots of different sound that I normally wouldn't put into an audio, but it is what it is. Everything's not always perfect, and that's okay. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love if you would pass it along to someone who needs to hear it. And you probably already know exactly who she is. But here's what I want you to take away today. Your message matters. Your calling matters. Hey, you matter. And remember, you can love Jesus and analytics, and nobody has time for a boring podcast. I'll talk to you next week. Bye, y'all.